Welcome to the Serendipitous Rebel Podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Crystal. We're business coaches and retreat hosts for bold, purpose-driven women who are ready to build businesses that actually fit their lives.
This podcast is for the authentic, rebellious entrepreneur who's done playing by everyone else's rules. We know what works because we've lived it, coached it, and savored the journey.
Join us for real talk on business, life, and everything in between. Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Serendipitous Rebel Podcast. If you are new here, my name is Crystal. I am a certified marketing strategist and the marketing guru of this amazing partnership. And I'm here with my business partner, Wendy.
Hello.
She is the life and business coach master of this duo partnership. And today,
Mistress. No,
Mistress, you're correct. Excuse me, my bad. Bad,
No,
Crystal. Bad, Crystal.
Oh my gosh.
And if this is the first time checking out our podcast, we're here to talk about all of the basic bullshit behind the scenes that we all have to deal with as business owners. And I know, I really don't know how a much more eloquent way to say that on this Wednesday morning. I'm tired. But I really excited about today's episode because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about something that was actually inspired by an email that I got from Susan Hyatt. If you don't follow Susan Hyatt is a coach. She runs retreats. She has a business model very similar to us here at Serendipitous Rebel. And she sent something out where she had talked about all of the things that she had to do before she left for a trip to DC. She was actually going to see the Buddhist monks that were completing the Walk for Peace across the country, if you had across. And it was culminating and ending in Washington, D.C., and she felt very called to hop on a plane and go out and see this. However, making the plans to go do something is one thing. The actual execution of it is another. And she started talking in her email about all of the things that she had to get done just to get out the door. Okay. She had to drive to Nashville to get, further away to get to the airport. She had to take care of the dogs and the cats and all of apparently this woman's got like 6 million different pets. It's amazing. And she, it's all of the packing on all of the things. And then she said that this is what she calls the joy tax. Okay. And it was joy tax that really stopped me in my tracks because, well, one, our business name, the name of this podcast is Serendipitous Rebel. Okay. And the whole impetus of our business is finding the joy in your life on your own terms. Right. But joy isn't free. There is a tax. And I found this so interesting. And I had even said this to my husband 2 weeks ago because we actually just got back from a trip to Canada yesterday. And as I was even leaving the airport, I'd like to paint you a mental picture. Brandon had gone to go get the car. I had both my daughters with me. Sydney, my oldest, is in a wheelchair, so she's got her power wheelchair. She's cruising behind us. I have 3 suitcases. Lorelai's pushing one of the bigger suitcases. I have 2 suitcases, a carry-on, and the backpacks strapped on me, and I'm shuffling out of the airport. And this woman looks at me, she goes, "You have your hands full." I go, "I always have my hands full, but this is the cost of doing business." And there it is. That's the joy tax. There's a logistics tax, an inconvenience tax. What do you think, Lee?
Well, I was so excited when you mentioned this, and I also get Susan's emails. I think I was just a little bit more behind in reading. And I just really do love this because she talks about the fact that your brain will always choose comfort and the known commodity over joy, or, what makes you alive and happy. Your brain will always choose not to want to do that. So it always comes up with the excuses to prevent you from, as Susan said, be the woman with the stories, not the regrets. Your brain will always say, it's inconvenient, it's this, it's that, it's uncomfortable. And so you shouldn't do it. And I also love that you mentioned serendipitous rebel and our desires for joy, because the fact of the matter is joy isn't always serendipitous.
No.
And joy isn't always rebellious. Those are things that can ultimately, there are roadblocks that lead to ease and spontaneity that we wish that we had. I think the beauty is, if we really, if we can, first of all, if we identify what it is, then we can build into ourselves a way to combat what our brain says you can't, you shouldn't do. Just don't do it. It's just uncomfortable. So I love, the first thing is that we're saying this is something that actually happens. And if our listeners would take a step back right now and ask yourself, have you ever talked yourself out of something you knew would be good for you? Yeah, like every
Well,
day.
and you know what? I'd even take that a step further. Whether or not it's good for you or not, right?
Whether you
Was
want
it
to do
something
it.
you wanted? Yeah, was
Yeah.
it something that you
Yeah.
wanted? And because I think the other side of joy is must be nice. That's really what it is. It's must be nice. It's it's that thought, because I think people even watch us, okay?
Hmm.
Well, actually, I know people have watched us because people have said it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We,
Oh, you're going on vacation again.
you're going on vacation again. Must
How
be
do you
nice.
do that?
How do you do that? Must be nice. Oh,
Yeah.
you only work half days. Must be nice. Oh, you're going on another cruise. We're running our next mastermind retreat is coming up here in like 50 days, I think. It's like really
Something like that.
something like that.
Yeah.
It's so close. I'm getting so excited. And I was saying that to somebody and they were like, "Wait, that's your job?" Yeah, must be nice.
Yeah. And well, I think that we do that. And I think to stretch it out further is that when people say it must be nice, it's because they're sitting in their own comfort zone. And I'm sort of cogitating a little on that, because I think that is what happens. And I think it's a matter of, I think when someone says it must be nice, and we dig a little deeper into it, it's that I think people are, and especially women in this messy middle season, we are masters at rationalizing everything. It must be nice, which really means I've rationalized that I'm not going to do whatever it is that I may want to do, or something similar or different, but just they're rationalizing not doing something. And I think that they're also, and I really think this, they're confusing comfort with alignment. So
Yes.
we're willing to jump into this, and we face this joy tax. However you slice it, whatever you do, that we've talked ourselves into doing something, whether it's that brings us whatever joy we're looking for, we've accepted the fact that there's going to be a joy tax tied to it. And we're willing to do that because it's in alignment with who we are, uh, personally, professionally, whatever it is, it's in alignment, and it's not just comfortable.
Yeah. So when I think about this through the elements of SAVOR, right?
Hmm.
SAVOR is our acronym. Again, if you've not listened with us before, it's an acronym that stands for step out of your comfort zone, align with your
Hmm.
passion and purpose, venture under your own power, open to
Hmm.
community and connection, unwind with self-care, and oh my gosh, ritualize gratitude and celebration. Why couldn't I think of that word for a second? But just, and so that's called the aging perimenopause tax. But anyhow, the at the end of the day, step out of your comfort zone is such an integral part of what we do in our coaching business. Okay. It's something we
Mhm.
integrate into all aspects because stepping out of your comfort zone is hard. It is an
Mhm.
exercise, or is a, I'm sorry, it's a muscle that needs to be exercised. Okay.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it ever gets I would, it's kind of like lifting weights, right? Like your
Yeah.
first couple times you do it harder, it gets easier as you go, and it never gets easy because you will increase the weight, you'll increase the intensity as like life goes on, whatever. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you have to like start with, but you have to start small, just like with weights, right? And stepping out of your comfort zone, I would say for me, has been just this radical way of looking at things, especially in the last 3 years, in 3 or 4 years that we've been working together with Savor and integrating
Mhm.
Savor. And I'm much more cognizant of building that into my days. It's almost like, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And
Mm.
so I've been thinking about that a lot about like I want to go do the things. And it's really was like a lot of the energy I was going to bring into this year. So in the last 30 days, I have gone to Canada, I've gone to Banff. I booked a trip to China this year. It's going to be 21 days in China. We've got our trip, our retreat booked in the spring. I know we're working on another retreat in the fall. I think that 10 years ago, Crystal would have looked at all of that travel
Mhm.
and all of those things and just thought that was too ridiculous. And again, I probably would have looked at that and gone, must be nice. And really, it was just like, I really wish I had that for myself, but I'm not brave enough to take the steps
Mhm.
to do it. And while there's like financial pieces to this that and like places of privilege in that regard that I totally want to acknowledge, I will say the payoff of that is that my must be nice is lined with how intentional we are with
Mhm.
building towards those things that we want. And I think that's all I've ever really wanted for my life, the last 5 years especially, is this life of intention and by
Mhm.
design, and not just to have life happen to me by default. I think you said it best just a minute ago, to be the person with stories, not regrets. You've been a huge person in modeling that for me.
Well, it's interesting. And the one thing I that popped into my head, just to back up for 1 second for our listeners, is a definition of joy tax: the inconvenience required to create a life or business you actually want.
Yeah.
And with that, it's like saying comfort is this is fine, don't rock the boat.
Yeah.
Growth says pay the joy tax. And, I think about it and it's interesting. And I think it has something about how am I wired? I grew up traveling. My parents traveled with my brother and me without. It has continued. I also had a career, in meetings that was traveling was always part of it, but I always had to pay the tax. What did that mean? I always had to make sure there was coverage. I was a single mom for a long time. I always had to make sure there was coverage for the kids. And I always, knew that there would always be some tug of war when I got home or when I left, or tears when I was gone. And this was a tax, and it really at times a heavy tax to pay. But I also think that the lessons, again, modeling for our children is very important. I think it makes them more independent.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but and as they grow up, becoming more independent is a great thing. And I think about it, what there's different kinds of joy taxes, and I think for us a lot of it is the travel. It is saying, what did Craig say to me? When's that cruise you're going on again? And I'm not sure the tone of his voice says it's not with me. Why are you traveling without
Right.
me?
Yeah.
Honey, we just got back from a cruise. But I think that it's really important for ourselves to be willing to pay what I consider to be a small price to pay for the joy it brings. And, if entrepreneurs are saying, okay, well, it's not really a traveling thing, what would it look like, paying a joy tax? Well, it could be, if you're thinking about it in terms of growth, it could be you have to send out a pitch email. Maybe you're a little scared. Well, let's rock that boat and send that email.
Yeah.
Or or it's like, well, should I raise my rates? Well, keeping it the same is rocking the boat, is not rocking the boat. Pull that trigger, rock that boat, and pay that tax. These sorts of things.
Hmm.
It's making sure that you block off CEO time instead of doing laundry.
Yeah.
Rock, it's like rock that boat.
Yeah, I
um,
agree. Well, it
yeah.
is everything is a trade-off, and I think that we don't talk about that enough
Hmm.
in business and in life. Just being human, okay?
Yeah.
We're always making a decision because everything that you're saying yes to, you're saying no to something else, and vice versa. And so think about running a business, just the idea of running a business, okay? There's a joy tax. There's a ton of fulfillment, freedom, all of that that comes with running a business.
Yep.
And in fact, that's how we all get sold into this, right? The joy
Hmm.
tax is the capital that we've invested into our businesses, the time and energy we've invested into education.
Hmm.
It is the fear of having it all on your shoulders.
Hmm.
Okay. There are plenty of times that I think, gosh, I could just go work at Starbucks and not have this much stress sometimes. Although I don't feel like I have that much stress now in our business, but I think about like the early years of
Hmm.
running a business, this first couple of years, all the pressure I felt
Yeah.
to make it to make it go, right? Having to say no to going to do stuff with my kids' school, or
Hmm.
on the other side, saying yes to my kids' school stuff, but saying no to business stuff. And that's
Right.
joy tax. It's a joy tax.
Exactly. Yes. 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 And it's such an interesting thing to look at, the fact that it's really all in our brain. And knowing that these feelings we have, it's not that the brain is the enemy. It's just super predictable, because we tend to feel, and we tend to internalize, well, my brain must be broken, or I'm lazy, or I just can't be consistent. All these sort of things, because our brain is wired for safety,
Hmm.
efficiency, and familiarity.
Hmm.
But at this particular stage in our lives, as women in this messy middle, and especially as entrepreneurs, what we really need and we must have is visibility, and
Hmm.
making bold decisions, and actually coming up with a new identity for ourselves as we evolve.
Hmm.
And the fact is, the gap between the safety, efficiency, familiarity, and this visible, bold new identity becomes a joy tax that we have to pay. And I think back to what Susan had said, that was like really such an anchor. Be the woman with the stories, not the regrets. And I think that's one of the reason, like, I'm a fan of Susan Hyatt's,
Yeah.
because she leads by example, very much so. And she doesn't allow this joy tax to get in the way of what she really wants. And I think about it, and like, again, how would this translate for business? Well, I want to be able to say, a year from now, 5 years from now, I'm glad that we launched that offer. I'm
Hmm.
glad that we really aligned our niche.
Hmm.
I'm glad I invested in support, you know, and I don't want to think, well, maybe next year, or I almost did that, or
Or,
again, maybe next year. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
it's just this thought that I have to have all of these things in place
Yeah.
before I start, right? And I think that I think that you have to sometimes just have the audacity to say, I
Oh,
don't have to have it all figured out before
oh,
you just do it.
yeah.
And I think that what I really like about this idea of joy tax is that she doesn't pretend it doesn't exist. Because I think a lot of people in the online space, we want to talk about the glamorous Instagram life side of running a business. Like, look at
Mm-hmm.
me sipping my latte at the coffee shop, living that laptop lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else, right? Let's talk about like all of the taxes that come with it, right? The sometimes having to get up at 4 a.m. to get shit done before I get the kids up and out the door.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, we have clients that are working this as a side hustle. So they're
Mm-hmm.
working during the day and they're working nights and weekends waiting tables
Yep.
and
Yep.
discussing things, right? I really, at my heart of hearts, don't believe that there's anything in life worth it without a little bit of sweat equity into it. I
Yes.
think that's relationships, business. I think that a
Yeah.
meaningful life, we just were talking about this weekend, my husband and I coming back from Canada. I said, he asked me the question, what do you think makes a meaningful life? And I said, I think, because we're talking about happiness in general. And I said, I think like
Mm-hmm.
the biggest dog of, bunch of dog shit that was ever given to people was that we just must have a happy life. Well, nobody has a 100% happy life. Okay.
No, because then you don't appreciate it.
You don't appreciate it, but
Yeah.
I think that nobody lives, and listeners of the podcast can't see me, but I'm just putting my hand level. Nobody lives just completely emotionally level at all times. So we would be robots, right?
Right.
There are
Exactly.
highs and there are lows. That's what makes joy so amazing. It's fleeting, it's a moment, but we're not supposed to live like up on high on that mountain 24/7. If we were, we would be
Mm-hmm.
manic. But I think it gives us that ability to appreciate, again, that ritualized gratitude and celebration piece of savor, right? To be able to look
Mm-hmm.
back and appreciate those
Yes.
moments, right? To be able to have something to look forward to. It's a balance of this give and take. And so I think that for life to be meaningful, I think we're leading it with intention and
Mm-hmm.
and really putting sweat equity into the direction we want out of it, because you only get this one big
Yep.
beautiful life. And
Yep.
so even in the iterations of our business, it's funny, we've been guesting on a lot of these podcasts, so we've been talking about our origin story more, which I don't know if we've talked about on this podcast very much, and that's probably a whole other podcast episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've been talking about like a lot of the trials and ups and downs more of like our origin story and lessons we've learned in business. And some of those lessons were learned the hard way, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
think what has made Serendipitous Rebel as a business so different from other business iterations that we've had, whether it was with the previous partnership at Kinship Travel Academy or even our own businesses with Serendipitous Traveler and Rebel on the Go. And I guess I won't speak to your Rebel on the Go, I'll just speak for my role in all of these. I feel like Serendipitous Rebel is like this meaningful, with intention built business that's not an industry by default or a
Mm-hmm.
business by default or just kind of going and trying to make all these things work. It was really built with the foundations of this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to do. Now we're going to go do it.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I think that is absolutely spot on. Um, and one of the things that has popped into my head has to do with this question, which I think we may even spin off into another episode. But are you building a comfortable business or an alive one?
Ah,
And I think about in the past, I would say that I would say that with Rebel on the Go, I wanted very much for it to be alive, but I think that and I think a lot of it had to do with the voices in my head
Mm.
that stick with the familiar, the predictable. Sometimes it makes you small. And I wasn't 100% ready to go for, what is scary, what stretches you, what
Mm.
the visibility part of it. How do what does expansive look like? I
Yeah.
wasn't really ready to do that, and I'm not 100% sure I was ready until we started Serendipitous Rebel.
Hmm.
And and that I think is kind of an interesting conversation that may be best suited for a later time. And I think the bottom line is that, and I think when looking at your businesses, is to ask yourself, what joy tax have you been avoiding, and
Hmm.
why? I think that that's an important piece to why. And again, I look back at Rebel on the Go, and a lot of the slightly uncomfortable, and which really means you're slightly alive. Like, I remember being told, if you're scared of something, it's because or it's because you really want it. Go for it. Don't hide from being scared. And that was something I probably wasn't ready to embrace early on. But, so what joy tax have you been avoiding? And where is your brain choosing comfort over alignment? And I think that's actually huge. I think we're inclined to want to be we know we're inclined to want to be comfortable, and the question is, does that really align with where you see yourself in a year, in a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is? And it's so funny because I think it goes back to just these tools that we are always using. And when I think about this, I think about the perfect day. And how do you actually incorporate knowing that there's going to be some joy tax involved?
Yeah.
Is it I pay the price of sitting down and doing my version of the Pomodoro method and really am focused, or do I do it comfortably, my brain says, and just sort of scatter around for 3 hours? I mean, there's things like that. I think this is a really, really good topic to just sort of dig into. Yeah, what small inconvenience today? And maybe this is a great way to end. What small inconvenience today would create a powerful story tomorrow? Ooh, I like that. One that I may journal about.
Oh, well, on that note, you guys, yeah. So we would love to know your thoughts. Always DM us at Serendipitous Rebel
Yeah.
on Instagram. We'd love to know everybody's thoughts when they listen to these podcasts. And what big audacious thing are you going to do this year that's going to cost you a little bit of joy tax? I think that's the big goal as
Oh,
well.
yes.
Like, what?
Love it.
All right, guys. Well, until next week, thank you so much for joining us. As always, be sure to subscribe and we will talk soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating.
But only if you liked it. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself.
You can learn more about our upcoming masterminding opportunities on our website at serendipitousrebel.com.
And if you have topics you'd like to hear about, be sure to submit them on our website or DM us on social media.
Hey, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.